Good day again. In this specific mission, we will be talking about the CAMMP Project Life Cycle. Obviously, we touched on this in earlier work, and here we will start to expand as we explore CAMMP further. As we have discussed before, CAMMP is an end-to-end project management methodological approach. And what we mean by end-to-end, that is project life cycle model that goes from idea to closure. So CAMMP is founded on project life cycle model. However, as we also highlighted earlier, project management methods must be tailored. And notice we are talking about now, I'm using the word method instead of methodology, because we need to produce a methodological approach should produce methods that would be specific to a specific type of project and depend on the size and complexity, or what we call project class, as we will explore. So tailoring is about best fit solution for an industry, for the organizational context, for the function or type of work, and of course related to project classification. As we go through this, we need to highlight something what maybe is an important concept, but it will not be used in this quest, all of it. We just introduce it in this quest, which is per version 3, CAMMP is a 3-dimensional model. And what we mean by 3-dimensional model is the following. First, we look at the first dimension, and that is the project life cycle that you should be familiar with already now. And the standard project life cycle model that should be tailored. Don't forget that. And I'll keep saying this probably until you're bored from the word tailoring. However, it's important to say that on its own, a project life cycle is good for micro or small project, but is not good enough for all type and size of project. Now, we're not saying the project lifecycle model doesn't apply on all project. It does, regardless of size or complexity of the project. We need to start with the first dimension, which is the project lifecycle model. But on its own, as the project gets larger and more complex, we need to implement or incorporate into our methodology the second dimension, and later on we'll talk about the third dimension. Okay, so as project get larger, and here we're using the word medium to large, or maybe moderate complexity or large and complex, we're required to manage at the phase or stage level via the use of something we call the 6 main processes, which we'll introduce next. Now, for these type of project, what we think, if you apply dimension, well, you must apply dimension 1 and dimension 2, and that will help you achieve good results. So in a way, what we are saying here, and we will repeat later, is that dimension 1 is managing the project at the life cycle level, end to end. But as you remember, the project life cycle consists of phases and stages. So we will use the main processes, which is dimension 2, to manage each phase or stage. So we are managing at 2 levels: project level, dimension 1, stage or phase level, dimension 2. And as we said, we will be achieving good results if you follow this model. If you want to elevate your performance to a higher level and achieve a higher level of maturity within project management in your organization, you really have to consider the advanced topics of dimension 3. At this time, we have only 4 major topics, such as project success, competence, best practices, and sustainability, which we will also touch on a little bit later. Let's go back to the first dimension and what are the core elements of the first dimension. Again, we are repeating some information from before. We must have a project life cycle, end to end. We must have phases and or stages, and the reason I'm mentioning the or, obviously we recommend to have phases and stages, but some organization might feel that they want to only manage at at the phase level or at the stage level, and that could be okay, depend on the type of the project they work on. We need to have stage deliverable, which is the output of every stage, and of course we have the stage gates, which will be at the end of every stage as well. To kind of refresh your memory on the project lifecycle, we're using, again, we present to you here the concept. We start with the project lifecycle. We have the discovery phase, the development phase, and delivery phase. Then we have the stages such as concept stage and stage gate 1. And of course, the feasibility stage, requirement stage, and the other stages, as you can see them opening up over here. And of course, we always close with the gate after the close stage at the end. There is a gate 9. This is from management to confirm that the project is indeed closed and is part now of the archives of the organization. Now, regardless of what size or complexity of the project, small or large, moderate or complex, there are certain functions that apply on the project, depend of the nature of the project again. ISO called these subject, PMI called them knowledge areas, we call them project management functions. And per the current CAMMP version 3, we have 12 functions, and these include scope, schedule, cost, risk, quality, health, safety and environment, team, stakeholders, communication, resources, procurement, and integration and performance. Now, of course, we are using color code here, but you can ignore it for now. Maybe in a future quest, we will highlight why did we use a different color coding. But basically, these are the 12 quests, or sorry, the 12 functions that apply most likely on any given project, and regardless of size and complexity. As we cover the project lifecycle dimension 1 and the function, then we have the second dimension, and you remember we mentioned that each phase or stage must be managed at the second dimension, depend on the size and complexity of the project, especially for moderate and medium project and or large and complex. And here we have adopted the second dimension from ISO, where ISO have what they call the 5 process groups. We modify this and make them 6, and we slightly change the titles and the names. And primarily what we have done is what ISO called the planning process group. We divided it into 2 sections, which is plan management and plan detail. And this is to highlight the need to develop stage management plan and a stage detail plan. So for large project, in each phase, we need to authorize the phase, basically. That is the first process, and this is main process or high-level process, and it may consist of many steps. So under each one of these processes, there are process steps. In total, there are 64 process steps here. So, but in any given phase or stage, we need to authorize the phase. Let's say we talk about phase level now. We need to develop maybe a stage or phase management plan. We need to develop a detailed plan. We implement, we control, and when we're done, we close and move on to the next phase or stage. And the circles here with PG1, PG2, these are what we call them the process gate. So once again, at the project level, we have a project lifecycle, we have stages, we have stage gates. At the phase or stage level, we have the processes, and there are the 6 processes here. Each one of them will include many steps, and at the end of that process, we'll have a process gate. Once more, these are applicable for medium to large project. On small project, we can skip them, they are not essentials. The third dimension is advanced topics. Now, before we go on to this, I need to remind you of something we said earlier, that when we designed and built CAMMP, we built it with the concept we want to go beyond what exists. And if you remember, we use the terminology that we want to go beyond the box without ignoring the box. What that means is that basically if something exists, we want to use it. We do not want to reinvent the wheel. So for this third dimension or advanced topic, we consider sustainability as an important concept. We are not expert in sustainability, but GPM Global is. GPM Global is an organization that's focusing on sustainability, especially in project management. And they use a model that's called the 5 Ps, such as people, planet, prosperity, process, and product. What we are listed here, I'm not going to go through their details. And that their information is published and available, and you can reach out to GPM Global if you want to learn about sustainability and apply sustainability on your project. Any organizational project management function need processes and procedures and knowledge and history and a lot of other information, but we also need to have a competence development or competency development program. And for this, we believe IPMA, with their individual competence baseline, is a leader in this area. There are other organizations that do this, but mostly they are related in one way or another to IPMA. And they have 3 major element or areas of competence, such as what you can see here: perspective, people, and practice. And underneath each one of them, there are many elements. So in total, there are about 29 competence elements. We're not going to get into more detail on these here because there's quite a bit of detail. Like, for example, this IPMA guideline itself is 400 pages. So as you are ready with your organization to move to a higher level, you should be considering this reference. For project success, we have a model called the Project Success Model, 4-dimensional project success, which was developed by SUKAD. And there is a level in this quest. Later on, we will be covering this area. Now, best practices, we use the term CII here, but technically this would not be appropriate for all projects because best practices are often linked to a specific industry or domain. CII is the Construction Industry Institute, based at the University of Texas in Austin, USA, is probably a leader in the capital project industry when it comes to best practices. However, for other industries, I'm not aware that there are special document or references or organization highlighting specific best practices. So I cannot list them. But I'm sure with every organization, as you work and specialize in your project, you probably identify your own best practices and you can apply on your projects. So that is the third dimension. Now, we keep saying, and we want to emphasize this again, the need for tailoring. What does it mean? Tailoring for us really consists of 3 steps. Tailoring for CAMMP ideally should be accomplished at the organizational level. And when you tailor the methodology, you should be producing tailored method. We said this earlier and we repeat it here. And not uncommon for large organization to could have maybe 10 or 20 unique method that would be specific, each one of them, for a given type and class of project. So when we talk about customizing and tailoring and adapting, what does it mean? Well, ideally, first step, we should be customizing a methodology for the organization at the highest level. That includes things like the governance structure, with the project governance, and any other strategic aspect. Maybe the project life cycle, the definition of the stages and the stage gates, but generically speaking, at the highest level within the organization, that they could apply this on all different projects and different functions that they have. However, that's not enough. We need to take it to the next level, which is the adapt, or adapting now this customized method to a specific function. As you know, organization have different department and functions and division, and technically speaking, each one of them have project to manage. And as a result of that, they cannot use the same method, so they have to have their own adapted method. So basically, managing a marketing project is quite different than managing an IT project or a capital project, or maybe even a finance or customer service or strategic plan. Anything that could be defined as a project, it could be managed using a specific tailored PM method. And that's what we can achieve by customizing and adapting. Now, what is the third step, the project class? Let's take a specific function, IT. And IT in large organization, you can have a very small project, quite simple, or you can have a quite large and complex project. They cannot and should not be managed the same way. So in this case, we will take the tailored method, the customized and adapted method for IT project, and then adjust it to fit what we call the project size and complexity, or the project class. More on this. But first, let me stop here and show you an example of what we mean by customize and adapt in a picture format. And these pictures coming from our book, our latest book that was published in December 2017. And you can refer to it for much more information and text if you like. The first picture, the one on top, is the CAMMP life cycle. The CAMMP life cycle, I want to emphasize this, is a CAMMP traditional life cycle that incorporate agile development practices. So you notice the first part of this life cycle is in line with the standard model that we have showed you. You have to go through these different steps as project owner of organization. And then when you get toward the definition or delivery or development, what IT people probably like to call development. So when we start to do the work, the specific implementation work, if the project is a software or a technology or can benefit from the use of agile development practices, then that could be applied here, and that could be iterative or incremental or any other approach you would want to use. But notice we are showing here, and we want to emphasize that this is using agile development practices for the development phase. So agile is not a project management methodology. It's a method, it's an approach, it's a practice, it's a set of values that could be applied on project, especially in the development phase. Sure, some agile concept could be applied earlier, but we still think project must follow a traditional, or I don't like the word traditional, follow a systematic life cycle approach with the type of stages that we are showing here. Now the bottom picture is one for vendor, and in this case it's quite different because we are showing a vendor project could be designed into 3 phases, which is a business development phase, client approval phase, and the service delivery phase, of course, if the vendor win the contract. I'm not going to go into detail. Feel free to read further on this topic in our resources. The third type of model I want to show you here, which will be used for capital project. And what I want to show you here is that, again, you notice on the top level, it's a life cycle that's similar to everything we have covered so far. The names are different. The first 2 are concept and feasibility are the same, but then instead of a requirement stage, we have what we call design basis stage. And instead of strategy stage, I'm using something called PM planning stage. And instead of definition stage, I'm using something called preliminary engineering stage. Again, you don't need to follow these unless you work on capital project, but the idea here is that basically this would be an example of how we tailor this. Also, what you will notice here is the upside white arrows, and these are the stage deliverables that we have mentioned before, such as project brief, feasibility study, and others. But you also notice the gray arrows, upside arrows, going upward, which is a class 1 and class 2 and class 3. And these are there to represent estimates. And the only reason we show them here is just to show, as an example, that on project, there is no one estimate. We will be doing multiple estimates at different stages of the project. These kind, if you go back to ISO 21500 or PMBOK guide, they will tell you need to estimate, but they don't tell you how many estimate. They tell you how to budget, but they don't tell you how to develop those budget and how many, and is there one budget or more. They tell you need to have approval, but they don't tell us how many approval points there are. That's the difference between a guide or a standard like an ISO or PMBOK versus a methodology that will be more specific, telling us, for example, whether you're going to have one estimate or 2 or 3. And of course, for capital project, we're showing here 3 because that is a common leading practice, or maybe I should say leading practice, not a common practice. Because a common practice, maybe some organization may not be following this. And you notice here also that in the implementation stage, we broke it up into 2 pieces, detail engineering stage and a construction stage. Again, the whole reason I am showing you this, just to give you an idea how to customize and adapt the methodology. Now it is time to go back to project. And again, the methodology name is customizable and adaptable. So technically speaking, almost a lot of items in here are possibly can be modified and adjusted as long as you don't break the principles and the critical success factor. You stick to the principles of having methodology. A lot of other stuff could be variable, depend on the need of the organization, the need of the type of project, the culture of the organization, and so many other factors. So, in terms of project classification, this is a model we use, 2 categories, size and complexity, and each one of them have few factors in it. And that could help us decide if a project may be small and simple, medium and moderate, or large and complex. These are the 3 primary classifications that CAMMP use in SUKAD. However, we can add to these if we want. Micro project, which would be even smaller than small and simple, and mega project, which would be even more complex than the large and complex. It all depends on the type of work you do. Now, one final comment here. This is unique to an organization. What do we mean by this is we cannot readily take this from one organization to another, because in some organization what would be considered a small simple project, and maybe another organization in a different industry could be large and complex. So ideally, organizations need to build something like this for their own use as part of their organizational processes and the organizational project management system, and they can then apply it on all future projects. To confirm or to emphasize this point, what we are saying is, and something we touched on earlier but we did not explain, is for medium and moderate complexity project, we need to have the processes, the 6 processes, the authorize, plan management, plan detail, implement, control, and close, apply in every phase. So in the discovery phase, in the development phase, in the delivery phase. In other words, what we are saying here is that each phase is like a mini project. However, because it doesn't fit the definition of a project, we call it a phase. But it needs to be managed with these 6 processes. So at the project level, we manage across the project life cycle, and at the phase level, we use this. But again, this is for medium to moderate complexity projects. Large and complex project, it gets a little bit more complicated. Or maybe I shouldn't use the word complicated, because I still believe it's a simplified model, but at least more details, more comprehensive, more robust, if you wish. In this case, what you see here is that the 6 processes and their 64 sub-processes or steps are typically applied at each stage of the project. Now, of course, that doesn't have to be set in stone. For example, the concept stage could be very simple, and maybe we do not need to apply these 6 processes for that stage. Now, what we showed you here is 3 major project classifications: small, simple, medium, moderate, and large and complex. Of course, you can blend, you can mix and match, depend on the need of your project. So on some project, maybe for the discovery phase and the development phase, you only apply the 6 processes at the phase level, but in the delivery phase, you apply it at the stage level. Before I say thank you, keep in mind, this is because this whole quest is about introducing CAMMP. So we are introducing the core features and concepts of CAMMP overall, without getting into too much detail. In a future quest, we will have a specific quest of helping you how to manage small, simple projects. And we might even have a quest for helping you how to manage your personal project. And maybe another quest that will focus on helping you manage large, complex, or moderate project, complexity project. So in this module, this is a foundation. This is, as we go back to this quest, the foundation, which is a project management methodology. And with this, we thank you. We know this has been a long session. Hopefully it's worth your time.